Thank you, Barb. Good afternoon, everyone. Tony, thank you for inviting me to be part of this discussion today. I've got to tell you, though, Tony, Barb, you guys put me in a tough position here because I'm standing between our walk and wine. So I will try to keep this to 10 minutes. You know, what my purpose here this afternoon is I wanted to share a story about San Francisco State University and the process that we went through in terms of divestment. But first, let me just share with you that San Francisco State is a comprehensive university, 30,000 students located in the city. We're part of the California State University system. We have 23 campuses, the largest public university in the country, preparing the workforce for California and much of the United States. Garrett Ashley, who's our Vice Chancellor of Advancement that oversees the 23 campuses, is here with us this afternoon. I also wanted just to take a moment for our colleagues that are not from California. Earlier we heard from University of California, so I just wanted to remind you that we have 3 systems in California. We have the great University of California, the 10 campuses there, the Cal State University system, the 23 campuses, and the 109 or 110 community colleges. It's that system of public higher education that has truly made California golden. So I am part of the Cal State system. I'd like to share about San Francisco State and the process that we went through. You know, in 2013, our university took a bold step. We became the first public comprehensive university, large comprehensive university, to divest from fossil fuels. We did this in 2013. Last year, we heard great news from Pitzer College, right? Remember when they divested? But that's because they had Robert Redford make that announcement, who's on their board. And then there was, again, a big buzz when Stanford announced. And there was a lot of attention to that because, well, it's Stanford, right? When San Francisco State took this bold step, we didn't get that kind of national buzz. But we've been working diligently toward really implementing this and making it work. But I want to share with you how this whole process started. I have the privilege of serving as the vice president overseeing advancement and also our foundation. Our foundation is relatively young. It was established in 2008. We have 30 directors, outstanding volunteers that help the president guide the institution. I recall back in the fall of 2012, I was at my desk focused on the advancement functions, marketing, communications initiatives, fundraising. I was worried about how many proposals we were getting out there in front of donors, and also preparing for our first major comprehensive campaign. The phone rings, I pick it up. It's a student that says, "Robert, I'm a student leader from a newly organized student coalition on campus. We would like to meet with you to talk about the foundation. We'd like to learn more about how the funds are invested." I said, "Thank you for your call. I'd be delighted to meet with you. Let's schedule an appointment." I hung up, and I remember going, "Oh, shoot." I might have used a different word, but oh, shoot. So we scheduled this meeting, and I recall, you know, a group of our students came in. There was about 15 students into our conference room. They identified themselves as a new coalition. Many of them were environmental studies students. There were students from political science, from ethnic studies. There might have been one student from the business college as well. But I remember we started our conversation, and I said, "Well, tell me, how can I be of assistance?" They said, "We'd like to know more about the foundation, how you're structured." They said, "We want to know about the investments." And they said, "Robert, we also want you to know that we don't want our money invested in fossil fuels." At that moment, I thought, wow. My response to them was, "Well, first, let me say something to you. This is not your money." And they go, "It's not?" I go, "No, it's not." Gave me that opportunity to start to explain the donor element. The endowments were established with the intent to benefit our students and our faculty in the university. The students were very respectful. From that first meeting, we agreed that we would continue to meet. After that, following that meeting, I advised our president, Dr. Les Wong, the president of the university, and the chair of my foundation board. We scheduled an executive committee meeting. President Wong, executive committee, chair of the foundation board. I kind of laid out what the students' concerns were and what they were asking for. At that point, it was interesting because when I first brought it forward to the executive committee, a number of the directors were concerned, and the initial response was, I don't think we can do this. Now remember, this is San Francisco State that prides itself in a long history of activism, social justice being one of our core values. 1968, free speech movement. You will recall, you've seen this photo, it's iconic, of the president, Hayakawa, at that time, standing on top of that little truck, tearing out the wires and the microphone because of the disruption from the protest. But a history of social activism, but our directors, very forward-thinking, progressive individuals saying, our focus has to be on return of investment. Our focus has to be on the return of the investment. How does this align to what we're doing? At that point, I knew we were off to a very interesting roller coaster ride that involved both how do we engage the students, keeping them involved in the process, but also engaging our foundation board directors and going through this whole process so we could keep everybody on the same page focused on the university. President Wong said, let's establish an ad hoc committee comprised of the directors of the foundation that want to participate, and we'll develop a whole process. So an ad hoc committee was developed. We looked at our first thing we did was look at our investment policies. Second item is that we started to engage our investment managers in this conversation to determine what is the level of exposure in terms of fossil fuels and tar sands. Those are the two areas we were focusing on. And third, how would we proceed on this? From that point forward, the Investment and Finance Committee and the work of the ad hoc committee came forward with a recommendation that based on our exposure, we determined that only about 4 or 5% of our investments were exposed to fossil fuels or tar sands, relatively modest piece. They felt that we could move forward with setting a process to divest, but it would take a period of 5 years. So the recommendation of the ad hoc committee was, the ad hoc committee recommends to the president and the foundation board that we will take a process to develop a system to determine our exposure, and over a 5-year period, by 2019, we believe that we can become totally free from investment in fossil fuels. So the board of directors agreed to this process, and we continue to have conversations with the student organizations. One point I did want to say, though, is this process was reciprocal in terms of the education process. I think we were able to educate our student leaders and activists about philanthropy, about the endowment, how it's structured, why it's structured, but the students also informed us about their concerns. I felt like I became a student in terms of climate change. I learned a whole lot about chemistry from our student organizations, as did many of our directors. And I recall, I think I made a point to the students when I said it's not your money, but the students also said something to President Wong and to myself and to our board leaders. The students said, all we're asking for, President Wong, all we're asking for is that our foundation board align their values with the values of our university and the values that we're learning in our classrooms to become engaged, productive citizens. That's all we're asking for. So when the students put it that way, it's hard to say no, frankly, isn't it? They're saying we're asking for alignment. Our students were incredibly engaged. These millennials are so smart. They had done their homework. They were respectful. They didn't take over the buildings or threaten to take over the buildings like past generations, but they made their point in a very, very effective way. In the last 1 minute that I have, before Barb gives me I want to say that a couple of takeaways that I'll share. The chair of our foundation board, John Goomis, I'm so fortunate I have the dream chair with our foundation. He and I drafted an article in AGB last year that kind of laid out this process in a little bit more detail than what I'm touching on. But the lessons that we learned, first I would say for those of colleagues that are going through this process, that are over here, the first part of this story, one, be open and receptive to the students. I tell you, I've heard from so many other universities and students from other campuses, who have said that when they approach their VP for advancement or their president, they were sure to shut down. No, we don't want to talk about that. Frankly, I think that's a mistake. I think we have to be open to our students. We should sit down in a very respectful way, listen to what their concerns are, and start a dialogue. The second item, I think it gives us an opportunity to look at our current investment policies. You know, this whole process we've gone through for the last 2 years or so, it's made our foundation, I think, more engaged. Because it took our directors, and we had to really think through carefully, what does it mean to be a director of the foundation? We're a new foundation. 2, what does fiduciary really mean? And what is that responsibility for the directors? It's helped have a whole new conversation of engagement with our directors has resulted from this process that we've been going through. The other item, I think it's important that we discuss and look at our mission statement. What is the mission statement of the university, the foundation, core mission statement, and how does that align to our policies and to this particular issue? The last item, if you've not been approached, chances are you will be by student organizations or faculty members. So I think it's important to be proactive, and that is, if you haven't been engaged already, start to look at your policies now. Try to determine what kind of exposure you currently may have within carbon fuels. Have as much information and data, so when you do get that call, like I did, you'll be ready to have a good conversation with your students and faculty. So with that, Barb, thank you. Tony, thank you. Thank you, everyone.